Let's start the podcast. Off the Cliff Sports. Thank you for listening in. Episode 27. I'm your host, Cliff Jacks. Another week, more action in the sports world. We're going to talk NBA, of course, because the NBA is the hot summer thing right now. It's spring training time for the NFL. Throw in a little baseball, of course, like always, and we may even get around to some hockey. We'll see how things go. But spring training is here. A lot of talks about contracts. The NBA is putting its footprint all over sports. NFL, Major League Baseball. Baseball players make the most money. Ask Bryce Harper and Mike Trout. But the NBA is setting the tones. And I think all the sports, when it comes time for negotiation between the unions and the owners, I think we're going to have some fireworks. So all of us, everyday Joes, everyday James, in my case, everyday Cliffs, we might want to get ready because we may have some times without some sports coming up. Players are taking power. We'll get into that and a lot more on this episode of Off the Cliff Sports. Listen in, keep your phones on, your computer, however you're listening to the podcast, and we're going to dig deep. Be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Cliff Jack's back with you. Remember, follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. I tweet a lot more than I post pictures on Instagram, but we try to be active on both. So, hey, if you contact us, we'll contact you back. I'm going to keep all those NFL fans waiting a little bit. I know you guys are ready. You're getting fired up. Football, fantasy football. I know it's that time of year, and I think everybody's blood is rushing a little bit. My favorite team, the Broncos, started training camp about a week ago, almost going on a week ago. We got other teams. I know the Dallas Cowboys flew out for training camp a couple days ago. So we're getting into that season, but we're going to wait on football. I want to start today with some news out of Major League Baseball. And reported in ESPN this past week, the Chicago White Sox have placed a net from foul pole to foul pole around the field for protection. If you are not a baseball fan, you may not have heard, but I know if you are a baseball fan, you heard. There was a young child that was hit by a screaming line drive about a month, maybe 2 months ago, that was injured seriously. And also a story that wasn't talked about. A young lady was hit by a ball earlier in the season, and she actually passed away. I want to say condolences to both of their families. One for the young girl, hopefully she recovers well, and for the young lady that passed away, definitely condolences to her family. But the new baseball netting is going to change the experience of baseball. Unless you're sitting in the outfield experience is a little different than people that sit down the first base line, down the third base line. There's always been netting behind home plate, but down those baselines is definitely different. And avid baseball fans know if you've seen a game from over in Japan, they've had netting for years around the field. But over in the U.S. here, those baselines can be dangerous. I love sitting there because you're kind of close to the action, but you do have to pay attention. So it's not all on the game of baseball. Some of it's on the individuals about paying attention when you're sitting in those spots. And the thing about Major League Baseball, it is on the ticket. about where you're sitting, and you could have balls in those teams coming your way. A lot of people have voiced their opinion. Some people like it. A lot of the analysts say it's a needed protection and that you'll get used to it. There were some fans. There was a young fan, and this is coming from an article, ESPN.com article, where the fan says she took her 10-year-old son to the game a few weeks back, and they had a great experience. But when they came to the game this time and the netting was there, it wasn't the same. They didn't get the same experience. They couldn't yell at the ball boy to throw him the ball up. The players wasn't actually coming over to communicate and just talk a little bit, which that part they still can come over and talk through the nets. That's not a big deal. I personally, I'm going to always be thinking about that netting. When I go to my goddaughter's softball games, I actually even hate the little fencing that's there because I'm always trying to look through the fence, trying to see, okay, let me record this video, and the fence is there. So the fence is in your video. But I know for me personally, I probably would end up choosing an outfield seat in this situation, and that way I won't have the netting in the way. But I definitely could see where it could cause some fans to rather watch it at home instead of coming and sitting behind that net. But I mean, safety over entertainment, something you got to look at. I honestly do think this is something that Major League Baseball probably is going to mandate from all its teams. The Texas Rangers, the team that I'm closest to, I do know when their new ballpark opens next year, they plan on having the netting. So it's something to get used to, and changes. We always go through changes, so I guess we can't complain too much about it. And safety is a big thing because if you ask that young lady's family, I'm willing to bet they'll say that netting needs to be there. That's baseball for now. We'll try to get back into baseball later on so I can update you on the standings and who's winning and who is pretty much tanking, like the Texas Rangers. Their best player, Joey Gallo, is out for the season now, so that only helps them with their tanking. It's about time now to trade some of these pitchers off, try to get some good prospects, and build. My question to the Rangers ownership: what year is it that we say, hey, we're going for it this year? That's what I want to know. Because teams that tank, it seems like I never get to the point where I hear the ownership say, hey, we're going for the playoffs. We're going for the championship this year. They always give us smoke and mirrors. That's my baseball little take for right now. Again, we'll get some standings and stuff for you somewhere later on in the show. I know everybody wants to talk about training camp, so NFL it is. Pretty much all the teams are reported now. You may have a few others report this coming up week to get everybody in. So right now seems to be some teams are having a few star players deciding not to come to camp and sit out. Contract negotiations. Contracts are really tricky. And I think at the next bargaining table, players more than the owners, the players really need to sit down and think about, hey, this is what we want. We play the most dangerous sport of all the sports, and we get paid the less of all the sports. Not too bright. But right now we have Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon for the Chargers, Michael Thomas for the Saints. There you have three Pro Bowl studs who are all saying, I need my money. Now, we always got to let the players know you signed this contract back 3, 4 years ago. So it's not all the owner's fault because you did say, okay, agent, let's go with this contract. And you put your name on that dotted line. But then you have the owners who, like I hear some of the analysts say, when the owners want to dump you, they're going to dump you, contract or not. You're cut. Have a nice life. Somebody else may pick you up. That's how they do it. If they feel they can use you for leverage with another team, they're going to do it. The players don't really have that right. They expect once the players to sign, they stay and fulfill their obligation. I'm only about 40% agree with that part of it. I personally think that players got to do a couple things with negotiation. One, you got to try to get rid of the franchise tag. I've been saying that on a lot of episodes. That's my pet peeve. The franchise tag is stupid. How can I have a contract and then a team owns? I know that word is a big word and some people don't like it, but I'm going to use it right now. A team owns your rights for 2 more years. That's ludicrous. If I sign for 3 years, I sign for 3 years. Because if you trade me, I'm traded. But after 3 years, I shouldn't have a team that has the rights. I do like the NBA's bird right. That may be something they could possibly go to where the team that the player is on has the ability to sign that player for an additional year. I like that idea. But this franchise tag is bad for business in my eyes. Even though the franchise tag does pay you the average of the top 5 salaries in your position, nice bit of money, but needs to go. The second thing in the NFL, I think players need to look at possibly being able to sign shorter deals with guaranteed money. I would rather have a guaranteed contract 2 years, $20 million, than having a contract that's 4 years, $35 million, but I may only see 18 of those millions or 16 of those millions the way the contract is laid out. This is something players have to do. They got to figure it out, and the players' union has to be strong and let the owners know if we have to not play to get this done, that's what we're going to do. So players all around the country needs to think about saving a little extra right now and get ready for that battle. Contracts, contracts, contracts. There's a lot of terms and a lot of things in these contracts that me as an everyday Cliff, I always ask, why is all this verbiage in here? Why can't the contract be simple as, hey, 4 years, this much money, we're gonna break it up this way. You don't even have to break it up 4 years, 40 million. You don't have to break it up 10, 10, 10, 10. If it's something you guys can agree on, hey, we're gonna give you 12, we're gonna give you 8, then we're gonna give you 5, and that last year we're gonna give you this. Simple contracts. It doesn't have to be as cumbersome and as term filled as the contracts are. And I think that's what trips up a lot of the players because they don't dig deep into those contracts. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We definitely have to talk about Michael Thomas, Ezekiel Elliott, and Melvin Gordon. Are these guys worth the trouble? I know all of them are studs, but should they be holding out? Should their teams be doing something different? We'll discuss when we come back off the Cliff Sports. Don't go anywhere. Back on Off the Cliff Sports with you here. I got one of our best callers on the line here. I'm talking to A Train. We're going to get into this holdouts and some of these big name stars that are holding out right now. How's it going, A Train?
It's going well, man. Just looking into all this stuff and trying to figure out these contracts.
So I know you're a Cowboy fan, so let's go ahead and talk about the first guy on the list, Mr. Elliott. Should Zeke be holding out right now, or should he have done this last year?
This is probably the best year for him to do it because next year is the 5th-year option. So I know the 5th-year litigation is a little different on the contract. I don't know exactly what it says, but If you're going to try to get your money, you might want to do it now before you get stuck into that 5th year. Then the franchise tag becomes an option and all those other things. So you eliminate a lot of issues by doing it now. Now, will he get everything he wants? I don't know, but his chances are better this year to get it done.
All right, put your Stephen Jones hat on, because we all know he's running the Cowboys now. Is Zeke worth the trouble, or could you find Zeke again in the draft next year?
Oh, he worth it, man. He worth. I mean, he does a few dumb things here and there, off season stuff, and he came in with some baggage. I think that's why it seems bigger than it is. The little trouble he gets into, but in the long run, he's worth it. Like, all that stuff's gonna pass. He's gonna get a little older, a little wiser, and he's proven to be durable. He's real durable. So, I mean, pay the man. So.
But as a running back, he's been in the league 3. He has probably, honestly, another 3, maybe 4 good years left. So you want to pay him $50 million for 4 years?
I would. Okay, based off of this, his suspension, so he hasn't spent a full 3 seasons on the field. So he's fresher than most. So it's kind of like getting a running back that has all the talent, NFL experience, but doesn't have all of the, that's not banged up. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's a good investment. Downside, you got to make sure that off-field stuff is curbed. So
leaving one running back who's on a contending team to another one, Melvin Gordon. The Chargers had one of their best seasons in a long time last year, and a lot of us thought they were going to beat the Patriots and get to the Super Bowl. That didn't happen. And now Gordon is saying he's not playing until he gets a new contract. Gordon, he was great last year, but he wasn't, I don't think, on the Zeke level.
Nah.
Is he worth that money?
See, I think Gordon is, but I think Gordon messed up by waiting until this year to do it, because he's going into that 5th year option. So he kind of messed himself over. I know he has a few injuries in the past, but his agent probably advised him not to do this last year for that reason, to have a breakout year, and they'll figure it out. So he was completely leaving out the business side of this. So I mean, I think he's going to probably hold out the longest, because it's a lot more that goes into that 5th year option. So he might even miss the first 3 games of the season until he gets figured out.
So the shocker, or the 2 shocking ones, big names, you got Trent Williams and you got Michael Thomas, both say they're going to hold out a little bit. Which one of them are the bigger impact for their team?
I will say Trent Williams is a bigger impact. The reason I say that is his backup is gone. The new guy they brought in, I forgot his name. They brought in for a right tackle. They tried to put him at left tackle, and he apparently he wasn't doing great through the minicamp. So there's literally nobody. They don't have anybody right now. So I think they're going to probably come to terms with him pretty quick, because they don't have many options. Mike Thomas, I think they're going to come to terms with him. Because,
they have to.
Yeah, I mean he's a monster, but they also have a few other receivers as well. So both of them are needed, but I think Trent Williams is a dire need for the Redskins, because they just don't have anybody at all.
And since they have Haskins, a rookie who should be their starting quarterback, we'll see opening day, they definitely don't want to get his brains beat out.
Man, I'm telling you,
rookie.
Exactly, it's too much on the line not to figure that out with Trent Williams. Man, they gotta get that together. I think he'll be returning quick. This might get figured out over the weekend. Mike Thomas, he just his deal is he wants to be the first receiver to receive an average $20 million a year on salary. So, I mean, I don't blame them. Right now, I think they're offering 18 to 19, so it's not much more than that. So, I mean, that can happen. That's going to happen.
I like Michael Thomas, but he's not Julio Jones, and Julio Jones should be the top paid receiver in the league.
I mean, but Mike Thomas was now this is where the Saints messed up. You offered him. They're too close to that record. So the agent, the people that are getting paid are like, shoot, push for the extra $1 million a year, because they pockets gonna get fatter too. And then they're like, you already underpaid your first, 3 or 4 seasons here. You put up these big numbers, so they all in his ear. And the Saints, if they would have offered 15, he would have took it.
He probably would have.
Because that's a big gap. Now it's too close, man. So he gonna fight for it. He gonna get it. So.
All right, another question for you here. Last year we had 12 playoff teams, which we do every year. What team do you think is going to take a step back? Last year, San Diego came on. Surprisingly, they were healthy. The Chiefs with a new quarterback was unbelievable. You had the Cowboys make a nice little run. Who's going to be the team to take a step back this year?
I had to break this down and do an AFC and NFC.
That's cool.
Because there's a lot. I mean, there's a few teams I had in mind. Now, for AFC, the top team that's going to take a step back is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. And I say that because it's just been proven running quarterbacks get figured out. Jackson can throw the ball, but he has an issue with holding on to the ball whenever he's going to pass. He fumbles a lot in the backfield. So he has some issues. That coupled with they're going to find a way to contain him. I don't think they're going to put many points on the board.
That's very interesting because in my early prediction right now, I picked Baltimore to win that division.
If he can do what he did at Louisville, throw that ball, hold on to the ball. That's the main problem. He's done this in a few crunch time situations in the playoffs last year. That's why they lost the game.
He's a rookie.
It was, like I said, he was a rookie.
And they didn't let him go. They harnessed him in. He had 5 plays.
I think that, and that's the scary part with quarterbacks. So 2 things that happen. You open the playbook to them, and they excel because they have variety, and they are they're firing on all cylinders, or the variety gives them too many options and too many ways to make mistakes. I think at least the first half of the season, which is going to hurt them, he's going to have an issue. The options are going to be too much. I think it's just going to be too much for him. Last year, he was able to come out the game, Flacco go in, he can get his head. He don't have that luxury no more. It's on him now. So I think he will adjust, but it's going to be too late by the time he adjusts.
So who you got on the NFC? You say you broke it up into 2.
Man, the Bears, they ain't going back to the playoffs.
Wow, so you don't think the Bears
look,
have
man,
enough
this is my issue
weapons?
with the Bears, and I actually like the Bears.
Their defense is legit.
Their defense is pretty much always legit. I mean, I'm not gonna say legit. They're pretty much always average at least every year, and they're beyond legit now, which they will be beyond legit this next season. But the offense is up and down. They'll have a good season, good couple of seasons, and next thing you know, they fall off the face of the earth. So Chicago, I think the defense is gonna put up some numbers, but this offense and this special teams, I don't believe they need that. I don't believe that's going to push them to get them in the playoffs. So
I can go with that though.
I think last year was a fluke because the offense just had too many breaks. They had a lot of luck. Some things went their way. So
I didn't call the Bears a fluke. Just want y'all to know A-Train made that statement.
Let me rephrase
Cliff
myself.
Jacks.
The Bears' offense is a fluke. Their defense is something to be reckoned with. Their special teams are a fluke.
All right, so let's go to the other side. You had some teams that had some terrible years last year. One team included was my Broncos. The season didn't go as planned. What team do you see changing things around? And they may not make the playoffs, but they're going to be trending up in a major way.
Okay, now a team that I think is going to make the playoffs and they're going to trend up huge is the Cleveland Browns. They started losing these games by 1 and 2 points, so they just need that little extra oomph to get over the hill. Now they got like an all-star roster on offense. Their defense was solid, and I think it's going to continue to be solid, but that offense is like, on paper right now, that offense is monstrous.
So you're feeding into the frenzy like all the other analysts out there, thinking the Browns are what it is.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 with it. I mean, you got OBJ, you got Beckham, you got Landry. I just don't know because, one, I am not the biggest Mayfield fan. I think he's arrogant, and I think he is going to go through some of those growing pains like Brett Favre because I think he's going to be just let it fly.
He is kind of like Brett Favre on that, but he don't have a Randy Moss out there to throw those dumb long passes. All his passes are going to be intermediate to short. So I think that the reason I believe they're going to win those games that they couldn't win, that they were losing by 1 point or in overtime, is now they have playmakers. So he can throw the ball short or medium. They can get the first downs. They can get the touchdowns. He has running back support. So that's what's going to push them to the point of making the playoffs. Now, will they go deep in the playoffs? I don't know. But I think they're going to make it. The Browns, man, it's too much going right for them right now.
Cleveland Browns.
I do have So I was stuck between them and the Oakland Raiders. I think the Oakland Raiders will make a wild card.
Whoa.
And the reason I say this is they made a lot of good low-key moves in the offseason. So I think they have enough juice to get in a wild card spot and they probably get beat. But I think they're going to come from the depths of, where they were last year.
A-Train has lost his mind, people. He said the Oakland Raiders. They don't even have the quarterback that Gruden wants as their quarterback. He doesn't want Carr as his quarterback.
He doesn't, but Carr, man, he needs to get off Carr back. But they added a few good, and they got Josh Jacobs now. You know how I feel about Josh Jacobs. And their offensive line is pretty solid now. So they added some pieces to they might have a 8-8, 9-7 season. So they could potentially be a wild card and get blown out. But I think they're going to win more than 4 games. So.
I have Oakland finishing last in the division, just FYI, because they got 2 stud teams, and then you got my Broncos. They don't got a shot. A-Train, it was great having you on this episode. We definitely going to do this again.
NFC, sorry.
Cut you off. My bad. He got one more. I'm going to let him get it in real quick. 30 seconds.
Real quick. The Savior has arrived in Arizona. The midget quarterback, they're gonna do better this year. They're going to do something this year.
The Air Raider offense with a college coach that didn't even have a winning record at college, but hey.
They're going to sling that thing around, and it's going to be everything Kip Kelly was supposed to be.
Wow. I appreciate your time, A-Train. We're going to have segments later on at the beginning of the season. We're going to do some picks, and I'll talk to you then, sir.
All right.
That was A-Train on the show with us, folks. Thank you for calling in again, A-Train. Guys, we're going to talk some NBA action. Don't go anywhere. Off the Cliff Sports. Don't forget, guys, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can email us at offthecliffsports@gmail.com. Also, check out the YouTube page. It has all the episodes on it. Also, podbean.com has the episodes as well. So if you missed anything, go catch back up. NBA time, guys. Right now in the NBA, there's a lot of talk about conspiracies, collusion, and tampering, all of the above. What we did notice this year, 85% of the free agency moves was done before the 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time opening of free agency. It was too many people signing or letting it be known they're agreeing to play here and agreeing to play there before the window opened. By 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we knew 50% of who was going where. How can you control this? My answer is you can't. This new generation, players are friends. They work out together. They play in the summer together. They go on vacations together. So players are going to talk. You can't stop players from talking. I was listening to a radio show on the way to work, and they made a great point that you can't really tell a player they can't talk to another player. And just like in the everyday world, if a person wants to talk to another company about possibly seeking employment there, they have the right to. Now, it's up to the team, or in the real world case, the job, to try to either keep that employee, or if they don't want that employee, let that employee walk. There was a lot of talk about what went on with Kawhi Leonard and Was Kawhi and his uncle playing the Lakers, playing the Raptors, asking for unreasonable items? As a person, I was kind of taught, hey, you gotta ask for more, and maybe you'll get what you want. Because if you just ask for what you want, there could be stuff you leave on the table. But only a few people really know what went on, and that's the people that were involved. I think Kawhi ended up where he wanted to. I honestly believe he gave the Lakers an opportunity, but good old Magic Johnson kind of blew that because he couldn't keep things secretive and in house. I think Toronto was great, but a lot of people say it's a difficulty being from the U.S. living in Toronto because of the different rules. And every time you come towards America, you do got to go through customs. I've went through customs a number of times, and it could take hours sometimes. So it's not the best process in the world. But the NBA ownership rules committee, they really just need to look at this thing and say, hey, I mean, you have a free agency window to sign the contract, but it's not really necessarily rules around when you can talk to players. That's something that just honestly needs to be wide open. It was very exciting leading up to the deadline, though. That part of it is exciting to me and probably a lot of others. So something we definitely need to keep in play. It was kind of figure out, okay, it's almost 6 o'clock. Who's going where? What are the beat writers? What are they hearing out in the air? So all that was good and dandy. I just think they probably need to let it go as it is. Next year, it could be a terrible free agent window, and we could all be like, this was boring. But hey, got to take them when we get them. Another big topic in the NBA, Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, came out and said it wasn't a good thing that Anthony Davis asked for a trade the way he did, the way him and his agent did. He said it was very bad for the NBA and it's leading to other players trying to go down that same path. In all honesty, Anthony Davis was ready to go. He saw that the leadership and ownership was not doing the things they needed to help his team win. So he wanted to get out. I do think that Anthony Davis and his agent should have probably went to the Pelicans first behind closed doors and let them know, hey, we're ready to get traded. Let's move forward instead of trying to put it public. I think that would have also helped the Lakers in the long run. They end up getting Anthony Davis still, but it kind of made LeBron look like a fool because he was kind of for the trade and the other players on the team knew it. So I think that kind of also played a part in the Lakers' terrible season last year, along with LeBron's injury. Now, after Kerr made his comments, a lot of people fired back their opinions and what they thought, whether they agreed with him, whether they did. And one person who has been talkative a lot more, and a person I never would have thought would be this talkative, good old Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick has been very outspoken on some of the shows of lately, and I think he's good for TV. He definitely probably need to get signed on somewhere. He's very good. From Kendrick Perkins' Twitter account, he made this statement. Steve Kerr got some damn nerves to talk about anything that's going on with any other organization, as if he just didn't have Kevin Durant join a 73-9 team. By the way, Mark Jackson built the dynasty in Golden State. Golden State. The nerve of him. That's from Kendrick Perkins' Twitter account and his feelings towards what Steve Kerr said about Anthony Davis. The trade request was terrible for basketball. To be honest, the players in the NBA are real strong right now and they have a lot of power. They know that they can push the right buttons and they can get to where they're trying to get to. Now, Kawhi, he had to make a U-turn. Well, he made a turn up north from New Orleans, went across the border, won a championship, gained millions of friends, and then headed out west after he made all of us wait like 3 days before he decided to say, I'm joining the Clippers. And he took along Paul George with him, which shook up a couple more franchises because not only did that shake up Clippers, the Lakers, Toronto, it shook up Oklahoma City, it shipped Russell Westbrook to Houston, Chris Paul to Oklahoma City. So a lot of shuffling went on with that move. Right now, I think the NFL players and Major League Baseball, they got to start looking at how the guys in the NBA are making moves. Now, one negative for baseball and a negative for football, they have these tags. Baseball, they can control players' rights for almost 10 years. They can control the rights of players going through arbitration and everything for a good amount of time. In football, honestly, a rookie first rounder come in with those 4 years, fifth year team option contract, then 2 years of franchise and tag. If they so choose to try to use it, they can control you for about 7 years. Those are some things that those two organizations, those player committees need to work on. That would get things rolling more like the NBA. Because right now in the NBA, players are real strong right now and they're getting to make moves, unlike the other sports. All right, guys, we're going to come back. We're going to get into some cliff notes for you, and then we're going to get a quote of the day and get you out of here on Off the Cliff Sports. Don't go anywhere. Now it's time for Top of the Cliff. This week on Top of the Cliff, we're going to invite Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, to come join me. Go ahead, I know he has a back, so it might take him a little time to get up to the top of that cliff. But Steve, please join me to the top of the cliff. Steve Kerr had some criticism about Anthony Davis and what he considers a negative trend. And because he's such a stand-up guy, Steve believes that when you sign your name on that contract, you're supposed to abide by that contract. Although there's two people that sign that contract. One is the player and the other is the team. The contract is between two individuals or two organizations or two entities, you could say. And people expect the players to play the contracts out. But when the team decides, hey, I could trade this guy, I could not have to pay him that money, and I can get assets back, that's okay. We call it a double standard from where I'm from. That double standard is in all parts of life, but more prevalent in sports because of the fact that me as an everyday Joe, I can go search for a new job, and if I decide to go to a new job, I don't have the stress of saying, hey, you shouldn't go there because you're here. And unfortunately, professional athletes don't really have that same ability. Although the owning bodies or the owners or the GMs or whomever, they can trade those professional athletes with no penalties any given time. There's not a lot of guaranteed contracts. I don't think anybody now that LeBron has changed teams have a contract. I know Dirk had a no trade clause. Kobe had a no trade clause because they were with their teams for so long. But no one in the current NBA has been with their teams long enough to have a no trade clause. That's just food for thought. Steve Kerr, please join me on the top of the cliff. And as we tell everybody, once you get to the top of the cliff, you have to make the decision what you want to do when you get up there. I'm not going to wait too long, so go ahead and limber up there. Steve Kerr, you're a good guy. You're part of those old Bulls championship teams, but everybody's opinion is just that, an opinion. Yours may not be wrong. Yours may not be right. Same goes for me. Everyday Cliff. Same goes for all my everyday Joes and everyday Jane. Steve Kerr, I want to see you on the top of that cliff. Thank you. All right, folks. We're going to come back with Cliff Notes and quote of the day. Off the Cliff Sports. You're listening to Off the Cliff Sports. We're back with your Cliff Notes for this week. I'm going to give you the Major League Baseball standings, the leaders right now, since we didn't really cover any baseball this week. In the National League, the Atlanta Braves are leading the East. The Cardinals have overtaken the Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers for the lead in the Central. And the Dodgers are preparing for the playoffs in the West. The rest of the teams in the West suck. The American League is where all the action's at. The Yankees have a nice controlling lead over Tampa Bay and Boston in the East. The Central is a battle. Minnesota on top of Cleveland right now, but that one's going to go to the end of the season. In the West, the Houston Astros have a pretty strong lead over the Oakland A's. So that's your Major League Baseball standings. We'll get to more baseball as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. The time frame that everybody's looking for, of course. I know everybody wants to get into it at that point in time. The Wimbledon phenomenon, Coco Gauff, got into the DC qualifying tournament. The fact that she's 15 years old, she can only play in so many tournaments on the pro level. So she did get into the Citibank tournament in DC. I know everybody's hoping, and I'm pretty sure they're probably going to have it set up for her to get into the US Open when that comes around. Of course, she is an American, so it wouldn't be a tournament without her getting into that tournament, and hopefully she can continue her upward trend in ladies tennis. I think Coco might be one that can get it done. NFL, being that we are during spring training right now, the Seattle Seahawks made Bobby Wagner the highest paid inside linebacker in the league. Wagner's a good linebacker. I think he's a good leader, but I don't know if I see him as one of the best inside linebackers. And maybe that's just me. I am an offensive guy anyway. I love offense. Of course, Zeke is holding out. We're going to see how things play out in Dallas. They have Zeke wanting money, Amari Cooper wanting money, Dak Prescott wanting money. It's going to be real interesting in Big D. You also have in the NFL, the Oakland Raiders put AB on the NPI list, non-injury list, to start training camp. The chance of him playing in the first couple games are probably slim to none, so I don't see that as too bad of a deal. Football season is here, guys. Those are your Cliff Notes for this week. If there's ever any topics you want us to discuss or something you want us to bring up, reach out to us. We're willing to talk about anything sports related, from football to hockey to badminton to cricket. We definitely will even discuss WWE wrestling. I am a wrestling fan if you didn't know. Favorite wrestlers, The Rock and Sting. Just FYI. Quote of the day is next. Off the Cliff Sports. I want to thank you all for listening in. I do this because I love sports. I love sharing my opinions and the content that I can get my hands on. And I hope you guys enjoy what you're hearing. The quote of the day today is going to come from an NFL legend, Terry Bradshaw. That quote is, "When you've got something to prove, there's nothing greater than a challenge." That quote again, "When you've got something to prove, there's nothing greater than a challenge." That's from the great Terry Bradshaw. NFL is up on us, guys. The next few weeks is going to be strongly slanted towards the NFL. Thank you for listening to Off the Cliff Sports. Until next week, peace.